Welcome to In the Light with me, Anna Isabel. I am an analytical hypnotherapist, and today I have somebody very different in her approach to healing. Her name is Elle Swann, and the book that she has written is How to Become a Mermaid, Embodying the Elemental Energy of Water. Welcome, Elle.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I love mermaids. I love water, and it's so cool that you are someone with a spiritual focus. I love it when I can connect with someone who's on the same, plane as me, have the same interests. It's beautiful.
Well, do you know, I'm going to tell you a story, so your book's been sitting in my lounge for a little while. But because of my podcast, it's almost like there's a queue of books in order to get to. So I'm not as free to read what I want immediately because I have reading deadlines, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's important because of what I'm about to tell you, the story I'm about to tell you. So about a month ago, I was meditating, and one of my guides showed me a bowl of water, and I understood it to mean that I needed to have a bowl of water with me when I meditate. And so I looked it up because he's Buddhist, and I looked up the meaning of having water in Buddhism, and there was indeed something for me to take from that was very important. And since then, and in fact, throughout last year, I've been thinking about water a lot, and I gave a talk for the Astrological Lodge of London on the subject of the element of water. Now, it's just interesting that I had just started thinking about this bowl of water when I started reading your book.
How
And
synchronous. That's so
it was
cool.
very synchronous. I knew you'd like the story. And it, I think, links in to some other work I'm doing with meditation to do with rose oil and opening the heart and love, etc. So it's all kind of happening at the same time, just as I pick up your book and I think, now that's there's so many themes there, because it's also about what it is to have feminine energy as well. And this is irrespective of what sex we are, that there is something that is very distinct. And I've been thinking about this all through last year. So it's almost like it's tying in different threads of my thoughts as I'm reading your book. So I think then it might be good to talk about the element of water. So tell us about that.
Okay. Um, Water has many different faces, as we know. Even in its physical form, it exists as, solid, liquid, gas. We can experience it that way. But there's also a spiritual component, which is, of course, what you and I are talking about here. So, water is the great nurturer. It's the vibration of loving energy, but it's not always loving in the sense that it's outreaching. It can be programmed to do that, which is what I also teach people to do. But water is just, it's still, it's like a mirror. It reflects, what's there. And if you choose to engage with it, it can be healing, but you have to give something of yourself to it, not as a sacrifice, but as a vehicle for movement. So when you are wanting to heal someone or you want to touch someone with the vibration of water, you need to imbue it with something, compassion, empathy. It could be some form of physical healing. You have to tell the water what to do because it's feminine, it's more receptive. It's not like the fire element that projects outwards necessarily in and of itself. So that's mostly what I'm talking about when I say that I work with water. I am aligning myself with its vibration, but also sharing part of mine with the water in a symbiotic dance that connects us deeply and makes what I'm doing with it useful in the physical realm.
So this all sounds very, okay, good word, ethereal, abstract, and perhaps to some people, um, a little bit out there, to put it mildly.
Definitely.
But there is scientific proof that water actually responds to energy, and the energy of feeling in particular. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so in my book, I actually talked a little bit about Masaru Emoto's work, Dr. Masaru Emoto, I should say. He did an experiment with water crystals that he froze in his lab. And long story short, he would say certain words around them, or he would play certain types of music like Beethoven, usually classical works, and he would watch how it affected the water. So words that were spoken angrily or music that was more discordant, it didn't flow, it wasn't harmonic, would break apart the water crystals or make them look incomplete. They wouldn't form into these, beautiful shapes that we love to look at in his pictures. But when he would send loving energy or loving thoughts or play beautiful music like the classical stuff that we love so much, these gorgeous water crystals would form in response to those vibrations. And I mean, if we want to get super scientific about it, he wasn't completely sure whether it was maybe the exact musical patterns or the intention behind it. So that would be a really interesting future study. But it's very clear that water does respond differently to a vibration that comes from a space of love and differently to a vibration that does not come from such a high vibrational space. So I find his work incredibly fascinating. And it was one of the springboards that I used to, kind of launch my personal investigation into the potential for water.
I think that has tremendous implications, not only for the way in which we use and treat water, but also in terms of our health, given that so much of us is liquid. So
Mhm.
you could share your thoughts on that.
Yes, absolutely. So, we're mostly made of water, and infant bodies are made of even more water, when they're born shortly thereafter. We are also born of water. We're surrounded by the amniotic fluid inside of our mothers before we come to be. So, water is very clearly a part of the human experience. But what I have been trying to teach people is that based on my knowledge of Masaru Emoto and how crystals respond to water, or I'm sorry, how water crystals respond to vibration, can we imagine what that does to our bodies and our mental space, when we're thinking loving thoughts or when we come from an inspired place versus if we're coming from a lower based place? So it's partly becoming responsible for your personal vibration and what you're putting out, but also how you're feeding yourself. What do we tell ourselves all day inside of our heads? What are we embodying in each moment? Because the implications for that are huge. That can make the difference between a life that's, as good as it can possibly be for us, whatever is in the cards for our health, we can be in a good space for us on a personal level. And the difference between us just not being functional and not reaching our potential. It really starts in the physical and works its way upwards.
I think for me, thinking about it, we're obviously concerned with the pollution of water. Um, and if I wasn't concerned before, I certainly would be now. Um, but also, it's about the way in which we pollute our bodies. Now, we're used to thinking in terms of not filling ourselves with toxins. So we want to avoid chemicals in food, etc. And we want to avoid too many chemicals in water. And yeah, we've got that bit. But now there's something else. There's a need to purify at an emotional level. And I think that, anyone who has followed this podcast from its beginning has heard countless healers of various disciplines, and psychotherapists and me talk about the importance of healing and healing at an emotional level. and also the mind-body connection. So this is just another piece in that picture, puzzle picture, that emphasizes the need for healing at an emotional level, because that emotional level carries energy, and that energy has an impact on our body. So this is just another piece of the puzzle that shows us exactly the same thing. Now, there's also a link between water and mysticism, water and psychic experiences in terms of astrology and many other disciplines. And I think for you, that's certainly been true. And you talk about something that many people are not familiar with, which is elementals. So there's the elements as we know them, but then there's elementals. Tell us about elementals.
Yeah, so elementals are beings that represent different forms of nature. So, for example, mermaids would represent the vibration of water, gnomes are the earth elementals, salamanders are the fire elementals, and sylphs are the air elementals. And then we kind of have others, you might see like water sprites or fairies, those are also considered elementals. So, they're basically energetic anchors for these physical vibrations that we have here on the planet. And I do work with sylphs sometimes. There is one salamander I talk to pretty regularly, but most of the time I work with mermaids, of course, because I work with the water element. And mermaids naturally kind of came to me and started talking to me when I was a young child. So they've been with me kind of from the beginning, whereas the other elementals came with practice and my conscious choice to connect with them.
So again, what we're talking about then with elementals, just to sum up, is that these are manifestations of nature at an energy level.
Yes, yes. They are beings who have the missions and commissions of maintaining that specific element and, like I said, kind of anchoring the frequency on the astral plane, which is like the spiritual plane, or it's the energetic space where we might think that ghosts exist or that we have certain psychic experiences. There's a lot of different layers and it can get pretty complex, but in general, I just think of the astral plane as the spiritual realm.
So could we think of it in terms of them being the spirit of nature?
Yes, I think that's a beautiful way to say it.
Yeah, so I that's how I would understand it. So if we're thinking about mermaids, then they're embodying the spirit of water. And so this
Exactly.
is the subject of your work. And so when you're talking about speaking to mermaids, you're engaging with the spirit of water.
Yes, precisely. And the cool thing is, though, these are beings that exist. They have, in a way, I guess you could say, their own personalities and their own interests. They have their own physical looking manifestation. When you talk to them, they can appear in a certain way. So they seem like people, but they're completely different from humans. They lack a lot of that ego identity, which we do need to survive, but they don't need that because they exist on the spiritual plane. They're just there to do, what they do and maintain a certain vibration. Whereas here we navigate more complex fields and, we're going through our own evolutionary path. But they've come alongside of us, I think, to support our journey. That's part of their mission, especially the elementals most connected to Earth, because I think that there are also elementals, connected to other planets. There's many other elements that we haven't even gotten into. But yeah, I
So,
think that they're just supporters for us.
so in the same way that I have experiences with spirit that are human and who are guiding me, then you are also able to connect with spirits that represent the energy, different energies of elements. To me, that is not new because I think that this is part of the shamanic experience,
Mhm.
cross-culturally, is it not?
Absolutely. And I'm definitely building on the work of others. I was inspired by Franz Bardon, or I usually pronounce it Bardone, but he's a Czech magician who laid out the elemental spheres in his magical work. And then my friend William Mistily, who is, a few decades older than me, he came before me and started doing all of this mermaid meditation before. And then I built on his work. This is nothing new. It's just my personal perspective of, things that have come before, and maybe new conversations, but it's not new information. This is something accessible to everyone.
Exactly. I think this is the thing, is the reason that I like the shamanic tradition, and I like the teaching that it comes with it, is twofold. Firstly, there is no monopoly on knowledge or the ability to connect with divinity. It's
Absolutely.
for all of us. And the more of us can do that, the more beautiful the energy that we create for our planet, for ourselves, for everyone.
Mhm.
So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I love is just the fact that there is this acknowledgement of the beauty of the spirit of everything that is on our planet, and the notion that we can interact with it and that we have something to learn from it, I think is one of the most beautiful principles that I've come across. So this is one of the reasons, well, I guess the big reason why I was attracted to your book, and why I invited you onto the program today, because I wanted to share that beautiful idea.
Absolutely. That's gorgeous. I mean, how cool is that? We incarnate on this planet and the blueprints and the templates are here for us. These great mirrors that we feel are so much a part of us intrinsically. It's part of our natural experience. It's absolutely beautiful to me too. And it's one of the greatest attractors for sure to this study and this spiritual path.
And if you want to learn more about this subject, then I think this is the book for you, How to Become a Mermaid. And I will put a link to it on the description box for the program. And I think you will enjoy it hugely. And it's a way to open your mind to all the possibilities that are out there, which I find infinitely exciting. Thank you so much, Elle, for joining us. If people would like to learn more about you and your work, how could they do that?
Yeah, so they can go to my website, thesedonamermaid.com. I have an email address posted there where people can ask questions and engage and connect, bond over mermaids. So they're more than welcome to message me there, and I try to get back to people as soon as I can.
Wonderful. And I believe you have a blog as well.
I do. I actually just started a brand new blog for people who want to connect more with the human side of me, with my geeky interests. You can find me at geekgirlunderworld.com, and I should have some more blog posts up soon.
Wonderful. I've just made a note of that, so that will be on the description box too. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This was beautiful.
Thank you all for watching. And next time we're going to be looking at animal soul contracts, and I'm really looking forward to that too. Until then, goodbye.